Ooh. Okay, then it gave me my live back. Ain't this a pleasant surprise? I just wanted to see if it was gonna go. Peace to the family, y'all. Peace. What an honor. What a surprise. They done gave me back my live. Peace, love, and light. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Get up in here. I want to talk to you on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday. You know, I came up with a name of the day for every week, you know, just to keep it high vibrational. I think that my name for Sundays, I think this is Salutation Sundays or something like that. Yeah, so, you know, Sundays are beautiful days, you know what I'm saying? This is the day that anchors the end of what some conceive to be our week. You feel me? But it also can be the day that begins the new strong or the new week, depending on, you know, your demonstration and how you see things. But nonetheless, Sunday is a very beautiful day. It's a serene day. It's a day of serenity. It's a day of surrender, right? Some people say that this is the day that, you know, you take off. The Most High wanted to, you know, this is the 7th day that he took off or what have you. You know, you get to reset, recharge, rejuvenate yourself, you know what I'm saying, and review the days prior as you get ready for the quote-unquote week coming ahead of you, or the strong, however you so choose to see it, you know what I'm saying? But it's beautiful. Here in Atlanta, spring has already sprung, you feel me? And the environment and the weather have a direct connection and correlation to our mental state. So a lot of people are coming out of the darkness of the night, you know, the proverbial darkness that winter represents, when we hibernate and we have to go through our own personal journeys through darkness, dealing with our own shadow selves. And that shouldn't intimidate nobody, right? Because it's a natural part of life, just like it's a natural season. You know what I'm saying? There are no years that skip over fall and winter because it's going to be too brutal. You know what I'm saying? No. If the universe goes through it, if the universe has to deal with it, why should we be any different? And as human beings are relegated to the cycles that we all have been experiencing all of our lives, why are we too good to deal with it as well? You know what I'm saying? Or to hold space enough to understand it. So, you know, but now that the sun is out, you know what I'm saying? Now that the sun is coming out of darkness, now that the sun is coming out of its shallow grave, you know, our energy, our attitude, our outlook, you know what I'm saying, also has the potential to rise, to raise to higher frequencies of vibrations. Feel me? So I want to introduce this concept because it's so easy to what's the word that I'm looking for, go along with the death, gloom, and destruction narrative, you know, all of the things that we see going on in the world with the crazies, you know what I'm saying? I don't think that we should always mirror those sentiments, you know what I'm saying? We should do something collectively in our own space, our own disposition, to say, if we create reality, if we're responsible for the things that we see in our world, in our lives, all of that good stuff, then what does our prayer look like? What does our prayer sound like for tomorrow? You know what I'm saying? You have just as much of a say in creating your today and your tomorrow as anybody else does. And The only thing that I would be critical of is that we don't have our own agendas. You know what I'm saying? It don't even make sense being critical of somebody else's agenda, you know, because they have an agenda. The evidence is the fact that we talking about their agenda. And it's criminal not to have an agenda. It's not so much criminal to have an agenda. You feel me? So if we focused on March Gladness as opposed to March Madness, then we would not be complicit with the crazies. But if we want to be complicit with the crazies and then still complain about it, then that's the definition of insanity. You know what I'm saying? If I can see what they're doing from a mile away, I don't got to spend all day reporting about it or laying out the facts and the receipts for it. Because technically, I can use the same energy to reverse it, to get in front of it, and to see who has the more superior claim on the reality. So rather than me participate in use my life force energy to promoting or propagating what the quote unquote plan and agenda is, I'm like, nah, I want to, tap into my imagination and say, I want to see March Gladness, not March Madness. You know what I'm saying? Because I see myself as a child of the sun. You feel me? I have an amazing relationship with the solar entity, not a solar deity. I don't worship the sun. I don't consider the sun God. I don't live in a heliocentric world. But I do understand that we have a direct connection and correlation to the sun. And our ascension protocol is also tied in to the annual solar journey, which means that when the sun goes in the grave in the beginning of Capricorn, God damn it, that's when we go into our days of darkness as well. And our soul, our own personal self. That's when our solar plexus is its weakest. That's when we are open and receptive for disease, for indoctrination, for contamination. All of the things that we see that we went through in the winter is the things that are indicative that happens when you are at your lowest light. When your solar energy, your inner solar energy is at its lowest, you're the most susceptible. You know what I'm saying? You're the most susceptible to get dark, to be in your darkest periods during that. And I don't hate or castigate darkness either. I'm not an opponent of it, but we do have to understand that there's a balance that is needed. And we're in the light longer than we're in the dark. We were in the dark for only 3 months, and the acronyms of which are CAP, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. We're in Pisces now, leading into Aries, the astrological new year, and this also coincides with the journey of the sun, right? As inner alchemists, right? We perform the same ceremonial rite and ritual that the sun goes through, right? It dies in lead or in Saturn, and it has risen or resurrected itself in the season of Leo. That's when it's at its most exalted place. It will represent a full resurrection, in this 40-day period. We're in a period of Lent, right? This is when Jesus was in the quote-unquote desert, resisting temptation. This is all allegorical for the period point in time that it's going to take for the sun, right? Going through that 40-day period until it reaches Easter or Ishtar, which is the first sighting of the new moon after spring or some shit like that. Okay? It's all astrological. You feel me? These stories are all astrological. And if we could appreciate it, if you could appreciate the biological, astrological meaning of it, then you can entertain the mythology of it, and you can understand and appreciate, I see how they overlaid that story, which is a real astrological / biological story I can see how they managed to overlay that over real, or what's considered to be real life, and then we get caught up. You know what I'm saying? But just to get caught up in that shit alone, and you just going headline and sinker for the mythos, and you missing the whole information as it applies to you preparing yourself for this journey, you understanding what this journey entails, you being respective and responsive to this journey and your correlation and relationship to it. Yeah, when you miss out on that shit, then you missing out on life within itself, the beauty of it all. And then we get stuck in literalism of religion. We get stuck in dogma. You know what I'm saying? And then we become easy to use. You feel me? We become easy to use and abused by organized religion. Once again, that has a clear-cut, defined agenda. So I think, I put the call out for it. So it was intentional, and we started the process. I want to do a global quantum meditation on April 4th, like the same one that we did in 2020. You feel me? And our intention as a collective should be focused on peace. Right? Our intention as a collective should be focused on the peace that we want to see. So I wanna put together all of the organization and these, the organizing aspect of it. Creating a site with the bandwidth where we could collectively get together online and do this around the world. We don't have to physically be in the same location. Even though I probably will have something physically present on the 4th, where those that do want to gather and bring different amplifying sound devices like sound bowls, different amplification methodologies, so we can create a resonant and a frequency that can amplify this intention for peace. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's definitely time for that. We need to get back to that. April 4th would be the date that we should be looking towards. And this is a concept that I like to coin. I'm coining it right here, called clanifestation. Not just manifestation, but when we get together as a collective and we have the same intention and we have the same resonant frequency, that's called clanifestation. Right? I'm being inspired by the Wu-Tang Clan all over again. Right? Me watching the show, and my baby made an amazing point. She said, look, I know how the story ends and I still want to see it. Right? That's how compelling this Wu-Tang series has been for us. In terms of not only the nostalgia, but really to get in to see the background methodology of how they work together. You know what I'm saying? Seeing how things actually work when everybody's playing their part and people are on the same accord, even when there's friction in the house, even when there's friction in the group. All of that ultimately is to get a better understanding, to get more clarity so things can be stronger, and the bonds that tie us can be that much more, you feel me, stronger and understood. So there's not things that we perceive to think that we know that are not on the table. Clarity is the best thing. Yes, and to hear the Inspector Deck backstory, I've been more appreciative of the brother as a lyricist. I've been reciting his rhymes. I've just been there more with him mentally. I've been there more mentally there with U-God. I didn't necessarily care too much for U-God as an artist, but I always understood in the dynamic of the group, he meant something to them that we didn't quite yet understand. You know what I'm saying? Seeing Master Killer coming into his role and his accepting his assignment, him stepping into greatness, you know, him having to understand when he's amongst greatness, you know what I'm saying? People seeing greatness from afar, you know, people setting parameters, people being encouraging of other people to go harder, you know what I'm saying? All of these things, life on the road, life away from Bay, you know, all of these things are very much important parts of our lives. Now, I ain't going on a major world tour like they did. I had just went to Chicago last week, and I wanted to get back home so bad, and you know, and then I was just away for a few days, but that grew my appreciation factor, you know what I'm saying, times 10. So I'm looking at all of these things. I'm not living my life through a TV show or a movie, but it has an indelible effect, you know what I'm saying, because these are the things that, you know, we are spending our time, giving our attention to. And again, for some of us who lived through it, it's somewhat nostalgic, you feel me? And I'm just able to extract life lessons from the smallest of things. So yeah, that was a dope, it's a dope opportunity to have a reminder, you know what I'm saying, of what hip hop was when it was really about the art form. It was about the burning desire to want to represent, you know what I'm saying? It was also about that business, you know, and that's what Divine and Power and RZA for the most part is showing, you know, the business aspect of the clan that we don't really understand, you know, when it gets to these group dynamics. You gotta have your business together. You know, I remember interviewing the RZA. It was a 6-hour interview. And now that I'm getting a lot more backdrop and context to the things that he shared with me in those 6 hours, I could better appreciate that long-ass interview that we had. But he was explaining to me, you know, I initially started out with a 3-year contract with his clan brothers. Then he understood after 2 years it was going to take 5 years, and then he said he understood after 3 years instead of 5 years, it was going to take 7 years. You feel me? By that time, he had already lost the trust of his unit, of his clan, by changing them dates. You know what I'm saying? And he said it would have been impossible for him to know out the gate from the break how much time it was going to take, because you doing something that's never been done before. You don't got anybody as a reference point. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's shooting in the wind. You know what I'm saying? But you gotta have your folks gotta have faith in you. Your folks gotta have trust in the process, and your folks gotta have patience. You know what I'm saying? That this process, even though it's taking time, is gonna be something that's beneficial along and over time. You know what I'm saying? All of these things take so much trust and faith factor. And what is faith? You know, things that you can't see. You're having for the most part, a belief in things that will manifest out of things that you can't see or perceive in the present moment. You feel me? That takes a lot of wherewithal to be like, I'ma trust a nigga, even if that's your brother. You know what I'm saying? And we don't have a lot of trust amongst one another. We come from a situation where a nigga can't be short. You know what I'm saying? You $5 short, somebody trying to take your head off. Let alone, you know, yeah, I got you on the back end, homie. Nah, for real, I got you. It's not even going like that. And there's another show that I'm looking at simultaneously that is giving me life, you know, in terms of the nostalgic factor, you know, the fact that I'm a student of history. I'm not a historian. I be wanting to know shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm very much interested in the process, in the backstory. How did things happen? How did they become to be? So the Godfather of Harlem is one of them programs that's giving me so much backstory, so much back history into how things came to be, especially pertaining to the drugs in America, our relationship with drugs as a people, the ending of the civil rights / Black Power era, going into, what's considered the gangster rebellion, you know what I'm saying? Money, cash, hoes era, when the exceptions became the rules, because hustlers in our community and our society were always the exception. They were never the rule. So now you're seeing how things transferred and switched over. Now you're seeing how the D-Boys was working not only with the FBI, but the CIA. You know what I'm saying? Yes, you're looking for what this government was willing to do to neutralize one of their biggest threats in the form of Malcolm X. Now you're getting to see why leadership in this country is only contained to a domestic perspective. Even though we have social media, there's very few of us who have global influence, who have been invited to address international bodies of government that are actually saying something that even resonates on that level where you're considered to be a threat by alphabet agencies, and they got to scramble jets and shit like that with one of you, when you're getting ready to talk. I will say it's been a week from today that I saw Farrakhan at Savers Day. And that was an amazing presentation. Very risky, you know what I'm saying? He didn't hold anything back. He left little to the imagination, and he even named names. You feel me? But all that information I've heard on TikTok before, and no disrespect to the minister. What Malcolm X was doing in the 60s was a lot more risque than anything that we see being done today, even with the access that we have via social media. And you can only tell when you are a verifiable threat by the way that they scramble them jets. You know what I'm saying? And the things that they're willing to do and the things that they're willing to throw out to silence you, you know what I'm saying, is a clear indicator of how actually dangerous your conversations really are. And, he was rattling the cage. You feel me? And it also speaks to the importance, especially when you are leadership, of knowing when you put yourself in that dragnet, that you got so many enemies that you can't tell, they can't tell who's who and what's what, right? You create a septic situation for yourself that enemies of your enemies become your enemy, and it becomes so cloudy that you can no longer tell, you feel me, who the hitman is. That's a hell of a situation to be in. You know what I'm saying? That's a hell of a situation to be in. And yeah, yo, it is crazy to have these shows as perspectives, because understand, Wu-Tang Clan is an extension of Godfather of Harlem. Why? Right? Why is that? Because the vacuum that was created by the fallout of Malcolm X, right, being assassinated, creates later on the rifts in these organizations, especially from what I understand, when Clarence 13X leaves the quote-unquote nation, takes the supreme lessons and starts the nation of gods and earth to speak amongst the youth. this happens in the 70s, I believe, the early 70s, after, you know, the expulsion and the assassination of Malcolm X, and then other people in the organization start leaving and doing their own thing. It created a rupture. It created a fissure, you know what I'm saying, that has branched off into different elements, into different things that we see today. So when the father, Clarence 13X, forms the nation of gods and earth, then he creates a house, a monastery, a temple, if you will, that people like the abbot come from, right? Right. Yes, we do have to take into account that the Godfather of Harlem is going to have a lot of embellishment in it because it's, you know, made for TV. So there's elements of it that are not being truthful, but there's elements of it that we know that are true. What is the element that we know is true? The CIA tried to poison Malcolm when he went to Africa. Malcolm addressed the UN body. Malcolm was talking human rights. Malcolm had beef with all of the agencies. Malcolm was targeted by, you know what I'm saying, the same agencies that his daughter's going after now, right? But his beef became so cloudy and befuddled that even if the CIA or the Alphabet Boys wanted to do something, they was able to use the nation as patsies, because they also openly had beef with this man, you know what I'm saying, who was putting his neck on the line on the world stage for all people, not just melanated people, for humans, period, who have not resurrected the conversation about human rights on an international level since the 60s. And when his son had the sensibilities, his grandson for that matter, rest in peace, brother Malcolm Shabazz, when he had the sensibilities to even insinuate that he wanted to resuscitate that conversation, he got invited to Iran by the Iranian leadership and immediately became a target of the CIA in an open letter. They wasn't even attempting to hide this. And then he ends up dead in a few months after that. Right? Yes. So for them scrambling their jets to find out what he accomplished when he went to the continent, that was real. Them scrambling their jets, right, to make amends and to cut backroom deals with the, you know, with the street elements who they're in bed with. Remember, if a nigga's selling drugs, he works for the feds. If that's where they're openly telling you, oh, the feds was responsible for the doogie, the feds were responsible for the coke, and the feds were responsible for the crack. Nigga, so why do hustlers get off? As if they're not government employees without badges or ID badges, right? They're just CIs. And they get the brief when they get picked up. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? We just, again, you know, our inability to see reality for what it is. Whew. So, yeah, that they would even consider to say, I can go and work with an element and segment of this community that is pushing death on this community. That's the same element that I can say, look, I know you don't give a fuck about your community, so why not sell out the people who do care about your community? Because you're already in the community undermining their work anyway by turning citizens of your community into zombies for the almighty dollar. You work for us. Let's be clear, right? We already is in bed. You know what I'm saying? Let me take this condom off and just run up in you all the way. And that's the game that they play, right? That the only conversation that they're having is whether you bagging it up or you going raw. But there's definitely some fucking taking place. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, the Italian mafia was responsible, right, to a degree. Lucky Luciano was able to cut a deal for World War II to get the Allied forces to go through northern Italy, through the mountains, to run down on Mussolini. That was the first deal that was cut. So they turned their back, and as a gift to Lucky Luciano for allowing them to cut a deal with mob bosses. They said they don't negotiate with terrorists, but they negotiated them in Italy with the mob bosses so they could run down on the Germans or the Italians or Mussolini and them. So then they allowed him the Versailles, right, was considered to be the French connection, the heroin connection that brought the dope in. Again, what they're showing you on The Godfather of Harlem, that came by way of Lucky Luciano initially working with the government turning their back. But Lucky had to what? Get with Bumpy once the dope came in and flood the streets of Harlem. So it's not just to say, oh, it was the quote-unquote Italians alone. And of course, and somebody said the Cubans were involved. They're showing you that in this whole Godfather of Harlem demonstration, that the Cubans were involved as well. Yes, they were. They were working hand in hand with the CIA to get rid of of Castro. But the CIA was like, well, Malcolm is working with them and he's a communist, so he has to go. You feel me? So everybody's working with one another, you know what I'm saying, to knock off the people who they consider to be the most verifiable threats to them. And those people are no longer here. Okay? And the result of their removal can be felt to this very day. Whereas we know that their presence would mean that we would live in an entirely different world. That's how you could tell about the impact of a person to see whether they're a paradigm shifter. How would the world be if they were still here? How would hip-hop be if Nipsey was still alive? Right? That's how you can tell how powerful somebody's presence is, how much powerful their contribution is. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So without The Godfather of Harlem, again, which is a very interesting show if you are not following it, you know, without Godfather of Harlem, we would have no Wu-Tang Saga or Wu-Tang the American Saga, because those are children of the Nation of Gods and Earth, 5%ers, which was directly spawned from the nation losing membership post the assassination of Malcolm X. It was almost like it was no longer cool, and they had to get this information to the children. So Father Allah took the lessons out of the temple and he brought them into the hood. He brought them into the streets. He brought them directly to where the people or the children was at, and it became a youthful movement. You know what I'm saying? So no, the show is not directly. It has glimpses. You know, it has parts and pieces of it that get into the nation and the five and the father, what have you. But it's not totally predicated on it. It's not totally predicated on it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When I had met Malcolm's grandson, you know, I was like, you not a blood because you a gangster. I'm like, my nigga, there's nothing gangster about you. But you have that title because of the connection that your grandfather, the vacuum that your grandfather left, allowed for there to be a Blood and Crips. They're bastards of the party. You know what I'm saying? So what's the party? The party would be the Black Panther Party, which comes out of the vacuum created by the assassination of Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, the assassination of King. And, you know, they got a documentary out called The Invaders about the youth street organization out of Memphis that was holding things down. You know what I mean? So that's an interesting perspective to look at. You know what I mean? And I would definitely say is worthwhile, to make that observation. Yes, there's elements that have been embellished in The Godfather of Harlem, but nonetheless, there's a history lesson there. There's perspectives, and use your imagination. Once again, they're also overemphasizing that they were utilizing divination systems to make critical decisions. That none of the life altering decisions that one of the characters was making was he making in the dark. He always was going to his oracle systems to get insight, and all of those predictions played out to the T. The ancestors, the spirit realm, was not telling any lies. You gotta follow what's being said, or be mindful and open-eyed, you know what I'm saying, of your quote-unquote reading, so you can do what you need to do to coincide with whatever it is that you out here doing. And stop moving in the blind, you know what I'm saying? Shooting in the wind, leaving everything to chance. Stop gambling with your lives, you know what I'm saying? If you can cheat, so to speak, right? If you can get up on a cheat code, if you will, and get a better understanding or better optics, right? Would you not want to do that so you can better your chances? If this is yet a game of chance that we're all out here playing. Yes, Malcolm going to Africa was an extremely big deal. Malcolm meeting with Che, Malcolm speaking at the UN, right? All of these things that brought him into an international light, where he was influencing international politics. It was the same thing with Bob Marley, right? When Bob Marley stepped out of his role just as a musician and became an international influencer of politics, and his music was being utilized as the backdrop for revolution around the globe. Yes, this is when you step into a whole nother category. You know what I'm saying? It's when, this when you bump it up. Hoover had dirt on him also. Yeah, Hoover had dirt on everybody, they said. Right? And they showed you in The Godfather of Harlem, the CIA had dirt on Hoover. And then they had to wheel and deal as a result, because they was about to out him as a cross-dresser. Now, it don't mean so much to society now, right? They got a place to put that, as for, on some acceptance shit. But back then, you know what I mean, that would have been catastrophic for them to leak that information. So as a result of them wanting to suppress that information as they showed it in the show, they had cut loose one of Bumpy's co-conspirators, a dude from Cuba who was in bed, Operation Mongoose, who was in bed with the CIA. And then, Bumpy was using information that he got, Bulwark Empire. He was using information that he got from the mob about, once again, them being co-conspirators in the CIA's plot to kill Kennedy, right? And also to create black operations to take down Castro and what have you. All of this stuff, once that leads to the, or that is a derivative of the nuclear crisis, and all of these things that are still being revisited, in our modern day time, and resuscitated and reinvigorated, with these conflicts, you know what I'm saying, that are taking on their latest iterations, right? The Cold War is warming up. It's no longer, it's thawing out, they said. They talking missiles and all sorts of stuff again. The commie scare tactics are still verifiable. They're still using plays out of their old playbook, right? But once again, we're still left with who fills the vacuum. You know what I'm saying? And I think I had a passage And the sermon today, it kind of speaks somewhat to one of these. Where is it at? Time to heal. Right? Nobody wants to roll of the leader. Where's this thing at? See if I can find this for y'all. Lord. Yeah, all right, so here you go. It's Isaiah 3:4-3:7. I will make mere youths their officials. Children will rule over them. Now tell me if this ain't the quote unquote Negro in America today, right? Or we could even say Western culture, because it's not even relegated to our children no more. Because we control global culture by way of hip hop as a vehicle, right? Everybody's under the spell. I will make mere youths their officials. Children will rule over them. People will oppress each other, man against man, neighbor against neighbor. The young will rise up against the old, the nobody against the honored, right? That's social media for you. A man will seize one of his brothers in his father's house and say, you have a cloak, you be our leader. Take charge of this heap of ruins, right? They appointing and anointing niggas leaders because of their followers, because of their likes, because of their charismatic abilities. A nigga says some slick shit, he got a 1 minute TikTok, you know what I'm saying? And they want to appoint the nigga leader, a leadership position. But in that day, he will cry out, I have no remedy. I have no food or clothing in my house. Do not make me the leader of the people. Son is like, I ain't got shit. You feel me? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm fronting for the gram, but I'm big broke. Like, I don't have the resources. And the only way that you can lead in the capacity of which you will be unable to be, you know what I'm saying, infiltrated and flipped, you know, you got to have a foundation. You got to be situated. You got to be solidified to a degree that you can't be bought out, because that has what happened to everybody prior. So again, as much as people be beating up on the book and the scripture and shit like that, I'm like, nah, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater without doing the knowledge to this information that's verifiable, because it speaks to what we going through right now. Could we not take a look at it just for a review and a purview before you tear the pages up and throw the shit out? Because it's you know, there's something there. Like, this is speaking about today. I will make mere youths their officials. Children will rule over them. People will oppress each other, man against man, neighbor against neighbor. The young will rise up against the old, the nobody against the honored. That passage right there just sums up social media. Just right there. You feel me? It just puts it all in a nutshell. Right there. And Isaiah 3:4-3:7, anything, or for the most part, the majority of the stuff coming out of Isaiah is talking about a prophecy, a dream, a premonition, right? Is that right? You remember? Isaiah? Yo, all of y'all that went to Catholic school and Christian school, y'all be getting an F. Y'all don't remember none of this shit? Y'all didn't retain none of it?
What about Isaiah?
Is the passage of Isaiah like a dream?
I don't recall. What was the dream about? Come on, Pope.
Come on, I'll get back to you.
Come on, Pope.
It's a premonition.
Trustee, I'm going to go on. Let the Lord tell you. Ain't you the Lord right hand man? You're supposed to know.
I's the Lord right hand man. I'm the tooth and the tongue. Yeah. So that's Isaiah. You feel me? That they appoint and anoint leaders based on metrics that don't hold up to any, level of scrutiny, meaning are they tried, tested, and true to that role and assignment? Were they made for this? Were they born for this? Are they on mission? Or is it just something that's a hashtag? They hashtag leadership? You know what I mean? So, interesting times. Nonetheless, said, I have no food or clothing in my house. Do not make me the leader of the people. Right? So, we again, we can see what it looks like, what it feels like to really suffer the loss of quote unquote leadership. Right? Let me just play this.
Keep looking for a blessing. Know your problems. So good. Keep looking for a blessing.
That was we did our 44th sermon today at 11:11 a.m. right here on Instagram. If you missed it, you could check it out on YouTube on Know the Ledge Media. We did it live over there simultaneously at the same time, and that was an epic presentation. The way that it lined up, again, 4 + 4 is 8, and so is 3 + 5, which is today's date. You couldn't plan that. You got to be in alignment, you know what I'm saying, for the chips to fall like that. And I could pride myself on being in alignment without being too prideful. You know what I'm saying? If it didn't add up, I would be more surprised these days if the stuff just don't add up. But the fact that it does, even though it should be celebrated, is just one of those things at this point. It's like, yeah, well, it did what it's supposed to do. You feel me? And it was a very powerful presentation. We laid it out perfectly. We made our points, and the points stand on their own. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't got to force nothing. At this point, it is what it is. It's just there. It is what it is. So, yeah, check that out if you get a chance. What was it called? The Magic of Metaphors. And we really had to deal with that question, that lingering question, is quote unquote, is the Bible supposed to be taken literally? Or is it a book of parables? Is it a book of allegory? You know what I'm saying? Is it a book of figurative speech? It's a book that was written from different civilizations coming out of the East, and the majority of them were a people who prided themselves on poetic prose. I asked, have you ever read the Quran? It's a beautiful book of poetry. It's poetically arranged, and the books in the Bible, for the most part, minus all of the alterations in them. You feel me? I think that where they originally extracted them from, those were things that were written with a poetic flair, and they deliberately used what's called double tongue, meaning that what I'm reading in front of the congregation is surface material to be understood by the quote-unquote profane, in the mundane in one way, but the people who are initiates, who really understand the symbolism of what's being said, those are the arcane, and they understand the hidden message. And that is a smaller, distinctive population that's receiving the light, just like they have in secret societies. Feel me? which again, which make the mistranslation and misliteration of scripture very dangerous in a society if people choose to only ascribe to the literalism of the word, right? And not the symbolism necessarily. These are the things that lead to slavery, suppression of femininity, us subconsciously being triggered to think that the woman is responsible for the fall of man. You know what I'm saying? All of these things that have been taken out of context by mistranslations of scripture and things literally, words being literally bent out of shape to fit an agenda, you know what I'm saying? We're still digging ourselves out of that hole today. You feel me? Literally. So at Mineral Ministries, we go into scripture and attempt as best as we can to extract the gems, the parts and the pieces of it that fit into a metaphysical lens that can be explained even in up-to-date literal terms if we so choose to interpret it as such, right? Because it can have its symbolic meaning for that time, and it can also have its symbolic meaning for this time, right? And there are parts of it that are to be taken literal, and there are parts of it that definitely should not be taken literal. But they never gave us a guide on how to tell the difference. They never left it up. They didn't even give us permission to decipher between the two. That was supposed to be the instructions that a priest would necessarily have to purposely guide the congregation on how to make this differentiation. You know what I'm saying? And that was never done. That was never done around me, around any place that I was at, and they was teaching, the Bible. So we just doing something that nobody else necessarily cared to do. You know what I'm saying? So we could help one another out of confusion. Feel me? Because it's just, it's too thick of a cloud. The confusion is caused by people screaming over one another to be heard. You know what I'm saying? And that's all I've been used to in the community. It's like they're still arguing about religion. They're still screaming over one another to be heard. You know what I'm saying? I'm only interested in getting work done. So, March Gladness. March Gladness as a campaign to say, regardless of how one chooses to perceive biblical text, you know what I'm saying, or any religious scripture for that matter, we know that it all has a astrological connection. It's all telling a correlating story about the sun. And biologically, we are wired to experience the same journey that the sun is making, coming out of his grave in Capricorn and rising to its exalted station in Leo, right? So from lead to gold, that is the role of the alchemist. You know what I'm saying? That is how you create what's considered, how you take the stone that the builders rejected and you build the perfect temple. That's what we're doing so we can resurrect our dead cells into new ones. You know what I'm saying? We could cleanse our temple, our body, and make it available for the host of hosts to reside into it. Which is what? I'm cleaning my temple, I'm cleaning my body out so the spirit of the Most High can dwell inside of me and I can resonate on the highest vibrational thoughts possible so the things that I manifest can be in direct connection and correlation to my higher form and my higher thoughts. I could bring the peace on the planet that I'm looking for, because me looking for it and not representing it to magnetize it, I'll never find it. I never find it. And it could be right in front of me. You know what I'm saying? So on April 4th, you know, I'm calling for us all to get together as a collective and do a quantum global meditation around peace. You know what I'm saying? Around peace. However you perceive peace to be in your mind, however you so see it fit, I'm sure that we could come up with 1 to 3 standardized visualizations or images of what we want to see in terms of a peaceful planet. A peaceful planet that I want to see is a non-nuclear planet, you know, a planet where no atomic bombs are going off. I want to see a peaceful planet where there's no chemical spills, in addition to the ones that we already have that are life-threatening, because those chemicals, right? Shout out to the brother Yaki, did an amazing presentation. Go check his page out, Yaki Awakened. Those are forever chemicals, right? Those chemicals don't have a half lifetime. You know, those chemicals do not break down. So now we have to learn how to live amongst, feel me, toxic chemicals. Being in our water supply, being in our food supply, being in our already depleted soil. You know what I'm saying? The air that we breathe, the water that we drink and bathe in. You feel me? I was terrified when I went to Chicago. I'm going to keep it real, right? And I don't walk in fear. But I've always had a disdain for the weather conditions in that region of the planet. I could never understand why melanated people were there to begin with. Outside of of course, the economic imperatives that brought them there. But I'm like, nigga, they ain't making cars in the Midwest no more. Y'all still there? In 0-degree weather? Like, who does that? But I never liked the weather. So to go there under this condition, that overcast is just something synonymous that I see in my mind when I think of Chicago. Cold weather with an overcast. And then I went there and it was just dark when we got there. I got there like 8 a.m. and it wasn't dark because the sun ain't come out. It was dark because of the overcast, and it looked just dark and dirty. And I was like, yo, they had a 35 state storm. There's nothing in me to believe that whatever chemicals in the air that was in Ohio is still hovering there. That stuff has to be traveling on air currents. Even here in Georgia, I'm not even under the disillusion to think that this stuff has not made it to where we're at. You know what I'm saying? We got some work that we need to do. We have some intentions that we need to set. We got some vibrations that we need to lift. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, on 4/4, you know, I'm going to put these pieces together, but we should be tapped into our clanifestation powers as a clan. You know, what can we accomplish as a collective, as a group, as in a people, setting an intention, tapping into our quantum powers and making it manifest. You know what I'm saying? Creating such a buzz and such a noise that the high heavens, you feel me? They have to hear us and they have to respond. You know what I mean? So let's make our voices heard intentionally, right? The brain is a resonance chamber, and Om is the sound of the universe. So you already know. All right, but my time is ticking, y'all. I want to say peace, love, and light. I appreciate you. Until next time, peace.